Hello, my name is Ben Silver. I'll be starting off this presentation about college-age students and buying behavior. These are my group members. I'll let them introduce themselves when they get to their slide. This is our group. Just doing a brief summary of what we're going to be talking about today. Our introduction, we're just going to go over some quick facts that we thought were relevant to our research and information. Next, we're going to go on to our research design and questions and hypothesis, what we're going to be basically questioning and base our survey questions on. Next, we're going to talk about our research design, basically how we're going to be researching it, all our research questions, and then how we're going to get data from that. Then after that, we're going to talk about the variables, how we conducted our research, what methods we used to have our survey be taken by people, and just overall some of those facts and details. Next, we're going to be talking about our details and survey plan. That's kind of going to be going more in depth about our data and how we're presenting it and how some of this stuff was relational to each other. And that's also correlated to our results analysis and our conclusion for our data. Basically, if we're accepting or rejecting our hypothesis from the start.
I'm Tyler Governor. I'll be taking over from here. Our research topic: all college students have unique buying behaviors, especially when it comes to food. College students are constrained by their low financial resources. We think that researching these behaviors will provide us some valuable insights. Just a couple of interesting statistics. Did you know how many students struggle with bills? 38% of current college students are concerned they won't have enough money to pay for their school expenditures through the end of the semester. Did you know how much the average student spends on groceries? The average monthly grocery bill for off-campus college students in the state of Michigan is roughly $231. Did you know what percentage of college-age students eat fast food? 84% of college-age students consume fast food, with 54% of them eating it weekly. Clearly, college-age students are becoming increasingly stressed about their finances. For our research question: how do college students' food expenses affect their perceived levels of financial stress? Our hypothesis 1 states that students spend more money on their food expenses, they'll have a higher financial stress level. In general, like, the more money you spend on food, you usually increase your stress level. You're gonna have less money, which overall will increase your stress. Our hypothesis 2 states that if students eat more fast food meals, their financial stress will be higher. Usually eating more fast food is I feel like you don't have enough time to go make a quality meal at home, usually, or you just don't feel like cooking, but you're gonna overall be eating a less nutritious meal.
Alright, my name is Eddie Schmidt, and I'm going to be talking about our research design. So earlier we defined some of the problems that we saw, mainly that students were stressed out about their finances, and that was affecting their eating and buying behaviors. And this is especially relevant for college students because we have this stratification where some students are on meal plans and some are spending their entire grocery budget. So we considered all these factors when making our research design, and we came up with 2 hypotheses. But before we go into that, we need to talk about our dependent variable. So the dependent variable that we are measuring is student financial stress. And when deciding how to measure that, we came up with a scale, just a numeric scale from 1 to 10, where a student rates their self-described financial stress, where 0 would be no stress, and 10 would be, or 1 would be no stress, and 10 would be very, very stressed. And so with our dependent variable analysis, we decided on using an independent t-test. So up here we have the formula for the independent t-test. And the variables are as follows. So x is just the sample mean, so we're subtracting the first sample mean from the second sample mean, find a total number for that. And then we're taking the root of the 2 standard deviations over the sample sizes for each variable respectively. And the plan was to do 2 dependent variable analysis, independent t-tests. So we're comparing our independent variable with our dependent variable. We came up with two independent variables that we would be studying for our project. The first was weekly food expense, which is measured in a dollar amount, and the second one was the amount of weekly fast food visits. And we decided on these variables because we thought that weekly expense would be very easy to quantify compared to monthly or yearly expense, because people are more used to spending money in that type of range. So with food spending for college students, our survey asked them how much their weekly food expenses were. And we thought that there would be a lot of benefit from that. And we also talked about fast food spending and takeout spending specifically, which we'll get to in our results section. When coming up with the research area, we just chose to do Northern Michigan University. There were some responses which were from college students outside of Northern Michigan, but when we were doing our in-person data collection, we had focused in areas around Northern Michigan University, which I'll talk about later. And our survey totaled 17 questions. The goal of this was to make a short survey, which would have like a lower bounce rate so that people wouldn't be discouraged and drop out of the survey. So only one of these questions is the dependent variable, which is the level of financial stress. The other 16 questions are either the independent variables or additional demographic data, which helped us to kind of frame our hypotheses and our responses, and also helped us to tell how accurate our sample was to the general college population, which we'll go into later. So this just gives a little more details about the aspects of our plan. So our population obviously was college-age students who have food expense. Our sample, we sampled a little over 300 Northern Michigan University students, and around 280 to 260 of those were full or nearly full surveys where all the questions were answered. The methods that we utilized include snowball, convenience, and chain referral, and the time frame that we did this under was the 17th of October to the 24th of October. So some of the locations that we used were Jamrich, Starbucks, Northern Lights Dining, and the library. We felt like this spread of locations gave us a pretty good representation of our college population. And the surveyors were all of our group members. We conducted the survey for the following research goals. The first one was just we wanted a quick, easy to follow, user-friendly survey. That was very important to us in designing the survey. We wanted to make sure that our questions were easy to answer so that students wouldn't be stressed out in trying to quantify some issues, which was really important for food spending because many students are on meal plans, so we asked questions separate about that so that they wouldn't be doing all this math and get discouraged from completing the survey. Our second research goal was to accurately analyze the survey data. For that, we used SPSS, and we did our t-test. We also did find a regression correlation later, which we'll go into. And our third goal was sharing the valuable knowledge learned to inform future policy. So we just really wanted to collect this data and understand what drives financial stress and student food plan and meal choices. And we thought that that would be really important because that is information that colleges and also just the government is always looking at and trying to help students really to live healthier lifestyles because we have such a high crisis in the US.
And here we go with our results and conclusions. I'm Jack Rouge. And I gotta give this to Eddie right here with the descriptive analysis. He found this. He looked at the NMU demographic websites from the statistics of 2022. And between the frequency of our test and NMU's frequency, everything was within 10%, and honestly, much of it was much lower. So it shows that our sample is very representative to NMU's population. And then, did we accept or reject our hypothesis number one? We unfortunately had to reject the null hypothesis, and we will go into that later. But our hypothesis again was if students spend more on their food expenses, it will have a higher financial stress level. And as to why, we'll look at our group statistics. Our N unfortunately was pretty variant between the two groups, which allowed for a pretty high standard deviation. That if you remember back to the bell curve, the standard deviation, the fact that it was close to 3, having data within 3 deviations, that's very variant. Probably drove our standard error much higher at 18% and 33%. And you could tell that it was also very variant from our significance value and our t-values. And that is why we rejected the null hypothesis for it first. And again, hypothesis one was if students spend more on their food expenses, they will have a higher financial stress rate. And for our second, we unfortunately had to reject it as well. Because, again, with statistics going, if students eat more fast food meals, their financial stress will be higher. And here's why. Very similar to the last one, our mean N values were very variant, which had to do with the standard deviation. So if you remember back to the bell curve, it was very variant, between oscillating 3 standard deviations. That's back and forth between the two, which will also equate to the standard error of, again, 18% and 33%. And then again, the t-value this time is negative, and the significance value is much higher. But since those are higher than our standard errors, we rejected the null hypothesis, again, of hypothesis number 2, of if students eat more fast food meals, their financial stress will be higher. However, we did have one significant statistic that Dr. Park helped us find, and that was the correlation. So the question 9 was, on average, how many times do you purchase takeout a week from fast food? And question 10, how many times do you purchase fast food a week? And I think this just goes to show that answering the question in our NMU format, or NMU student demographic, that they consider fast food and takeout very heavily correlated, which that also could go into the fact of we might need some more healthier options at Northern Michigan University for food.
So, Ben again, some of the possible research design biases and problems that we encountered were the response rate. We did end up getting 318 people to take our survey, but of that 318, we only got about 270, 260 people to fully complete it. And well, not fully completed. We had a lot of problems with people answering some of the questions that we just kind of like left the fill in the blank part for how much on average a week do you spend, which is kind of rough for our some of our hypotheses, because that was like the main part of our survey. So having people not completely fill that out was a definite big part of why we had to reject both of our hypotheses. Next was the voluntary aspect of our survey. We had to physically go up and just be like, hey, can you take this survey for us, please? Here's the QR code, and having people just say no to our faces. That's totally within the right, totally fine, but I think having more of those people just take those surveys would have definitely helped our significance of our results. Next was the convenience of our survey. We located heavily in Jamridge, outside Starbucks, Northern Lights Dining, and on our respective teams. And so using that, just like what we know, who we know, how we can get to them, might have influenced our data a little bit. We had on average, I think it was over 160 students between the ages of 18 and 19 in the freshmen do our survey. So that might be kind of problematic for our survey, because we're looking for on and off campus students' meal plan and how much they spend a week and just all those factors. So having just a large population, or large part of the population be under or 18 and 19 probably affected our data a little bit. Next was under coverage, and having those people not do those responses, only having, I think it was 65 people out of the 276 or 318 people, definitely skewed our data and made our standard error a lot different. So I think having, in the future, having those people actually answer those responses could definitely improve our answers to our hypothesis. But in the future, we'll do stuff differently. So we'll work on it. We just have problems. But if anyone wants to do any funding, maybe we can do something else, maybe make it a little bit better. These are our references that we got, and our group again. Thank you very much.